All right, this is Nate. You can also call me Nathan, but please never call me Nathaniel. And we are back with another reviewing every Monster Train card, this time featuring the Awoken clan. So we did Hellhorned last time. We'll try to go a little bit faster this time as we get through the cards. Still want to be as thorough, but certainly, hopefully, not as long-winded. And as I mentioned last time, really appreciate the number of views and subscribers. It's really been great the last couple of weeks as I've been trying a lot of different stuff. So hopefully it's not too many different things all at once, but I've been really enjoying making more content, and I hope you guys have been enjoying it as well. So if you have been liking it and you haven't subscribed yet, please feel free to subscribe. With that, let's jump into the setup. So it's the same as last time. We're going to review every single card in each clan. All champions and artifacts will be covered as part of a separate video. I'm reviewing cards in context of standard play, without mutators, outside of multiplayer. And the cards are not reviewed as in a vacuum, saying like how strong is this card. It's also not reviewed in terms of how high is the nuts case for the card. So it's really about how it functions in common build archetypes, and with an emphasis on consistency over raw power of the card. So how consistent is the card in the common builds? Rating scale is S, a card that is powerful in virtually all situations. There are probably 2 cards in the entire game currently that are S. There were certainly more cards before a lot of the nerfs came out, but I would say right now there are 2 cards which are going to be powerful all the time. The rest are going to be A through D. A is a situationally powerful card that is otherwise strong. So we have cards that are worst case, they're strong, but best case, they can be incredibly powerful. They're also very rare. There are some in every single clan, but they're certainly more rare than the average cards. B is a generally strong card. So it's going to be strong in virtually all situations, but won't be especially powerful. Or it can be a situationally powerful card that, in worst case or otherwise, is average. So it's an average card that has a high nuts potential, or it's just a generally strong card across the board. C is a generally average card. So in all situations, it's average. It's never going to be strong. It's never going to be extremely powerful, but it's just generally average. Or it's a situationally powerful or strong card that is otherwise very weak. And a lot of cards end up in C, and maybe you're wondering, why would you put a C? And again, it's about consistency. Yes, there are some nuts cards, but those oftentimes are cards that, outside of that really powerful situation, are barely above a dead weight, or even might be a dead weight. It's a playable dead weight. So in those cases, I put them as a C, even though they have, high power potential. Their consistency is what brings them down. And then finally, we have Ds. There are not many Ds. In fact, there are fewer Ds than As, I believe. There are more than S's, though. These are just generally weak cards. So they're cards without any real strong situation available for them. And across the board in any build, they're going to be pretty weak. So with that in mind, let's jump into the common Awoken builds, starting with the champion builds. So we have the Sentient. First main build is the Wolverine build. This is a heavy regen build using the explosive Sentient. So every time you get those regen triggers, you're getting the explosive trigger, which is then killing a lot of the frontliners. And then typically you want to put a heavy hitting backliner or some type of sweep behind the Sentient to take care of everything which is surviving. It's also a pretty good 2-floor setup where you have the Sentient and 1 unit on 1 floor, and then you have a cleanup floor afterward. But it's really good. It's fantastic against most bosses. Certainly good all the way through Covenant 25. Then you have the Stop Hitting Yourself build. This is with Spiked Sentient with a heavy damage backliner. So the Sentient is used primarily to do cleanup and to take out backliners. And then you have a big damage backliner. You have like an Animus, or you have a Demon or something like that that's going to do a lot of damage. Or you can have something like Bramble Lash, where you have multiple Bramble Lashes and the Bramble Lashes take out the frontliners, and then the spikes take out the backliners. And then during Relentless, you hope you get a couple Bramble Lashes off on the boss, and then finish them off with the spikes. You can also do it with spike. It goes really well with spike artifacts, or with the channeler, and then you get the double spike effects, but not necessary to make it work. When you look at Wildenton, so Wildenton, first one is the Fast and Furious build. This is one of my favorites with Wildenton. You overstack a floor and you get quick, and then you get typically rage. You don't have to have rage, but it works best with rage, especially things like the Branded Warrior or with any of your incanters as well. And the whole idea is that that whole floor is quick, and it just kills everything because it's quick and you don't take any damage. Second is the Rat Trap build. So Rat Trap, you have sweep and quick with root. So you take one sweep and root, and then one quick, and you use that to basically just keep enemies on that floor. And then typically you either want to stack regen on the front unit on that floor, or stack stealth. So it works really well with Melting Remnant, but you can do it with others as well, as long as you have enough regen. And finally, we have the Awoken Incanters. You take Thorn Lord, you take a bunch of Incanters. Thorn Lord is mostly there to enable the 3 stings that you draw. He's not actually the best Incanter in the game. But then, yeah, you get Thorn Lord, you get Siren of the Sea, or any other major incant unit. You can even get quick, like toss a quick in there to make the incanter quick, and then you just incant a lot with all of your stings and low-cost spells that come with Awoken. Outside of the champion builds, then we have some general builds that you can also do. One is just a buffed up Animus build, so you get a really heavy statted Animus. You get like Large Stone, maybe you get quick, or even another multi-strike, and then you just get a whole bunch of stat buffs, and you get any tank. So you put any tank in front, Thorned Hollow, Sentient, or any other tank from another clan, and then you just keep putting stat buffs on Animus, and Animus just kills everything with its triple multi-strike. You can also do that with an Animus of speed, but then you need typically double multi-strike, or multi-strike plus a Large Stone. The multi-strike becomes very important to take advantage of all the stat buffs. So I think Animus of Will is easier to do it with, but you can also do it with Animus of Speed as long as you have some type of multi-strike. And then there's the mini Wolverine build. It's the same as the Wolverine build, but you use a Thorned Hollow instead of the Sentient. And here it's the same principle. You put a lot of regen onto Thorned Hollow. Instead of being explosive, now you get massive spikes onto the Thorned Hollow. And the main goal here is to have your Thorned Hollow with all of its HP, all of its spikes, and then behind it a heavy damage dealer who can burst out things that aren't going to get killed by the spikes. It's a little bit harder to pull off, I think, than just a pure Sentient-oriented Wolverine build, but it can work. And it's certainly good if you have Awoken as secondary rather than primary clan. And then what does Awoken do for other classes? It does basically 3 main things. So one is its buffs, so regen and spikes. You can't get regen any other way than Awoken. You can get spikes through specifically Little Fade, but outside of that, you can't really get spikes. So it's regen and spike support. It's heavy draw. Awoken has all of the major draw cards. There are certainly other draw cards outside of Awoken, but it's the main one, the main clan for draw, which helps with a lot with incanting. It helps a lot with other cards or other. In general, it's really good just because of all the draw you're getting. And then it's good for stat buffs. It's not the best in terms of stat buffs. I think Umbra is probably the best there, but it's still you have a lot of the raw stat buffs where you just like add extra damage, extra health. Actually, I'm sorry, mistaken. I think Melting Remnant is the best for stat buffs because there are better ways, like you can use. Anyway, we'll get to that. But it's the other major stat buff oriented one with the Steel Enhancer and other stat buffing cards. Okay, so that's how Awoken background is set up. Let's now jump into the actual Awoken units, starting with common units. Oh wait, there are no common units. So Awoken is the only clan that doesn't have any common units, so we're going to skip that. We're going to go right into uncommon units, starting with Animus of Speed. So Animus of Speed, as I already mentioned, it's one of the ones you can use in an Animus buff deck. The main issue with Animus of Speed is, although it has a pretty high damage and it's quick, in order for it to be super effective, you need multi-strike on it, and you typically want a large stone as well. Both Animus like large stone a lot. The health becomes a problem. Certainly the quick helps, but you're rarely going to have enough damage onto the Animus of Speed, especially early on in the fight, to survive things like spikes and then of course even with spikes, right, doesn't matter whether you're quick, you still take the spikes damage. So it dies very easily to spikes, dies very easily to sweep. So it's almost mandatory you get at least a health stone, but ideally a large stone to also get some more damage. And then multi-strike. You need multi-strike on it in order for it to be a real carry. Even then, outside of just using it as your main damage dealer, it's a pretty good filler of a lot of decks. Just having an Animus of Speed on a separate floor, specifically during Seraph fights, can be really valuable, because then Seraph gets distracted, goes onto the top floor, for example, creates a 3 health unit that then your Animus is killing, and it can keep Seraph distracted from your main damage floor. It's a very, very good distraction unit. So given that there are some cases even outside of the main cases where it's good, I would say it's still a pretty strong. I would say it's a card that it's a unit that can become very strong if you buff it the right way with a large stone and multi-strike, and then it's very average outside of that. Given that situation, I gave it a grade of B. Next, Animus of Will. Animus of Will is very similar to Animus of Speed. It's I can high roll quite a lot. There's an entire build around it where you just buff its stats. The nice thing about having the ×3 multi-strike or ×3 strike from the beginning is that any damage buff you put on it then gets multiplied by 3. So if you put Sharpen, it's actually ×12 or adds 12 damage. If you're adding a Steel Enhancer, it's +9 damage. And this is a unit that absolutely loves any large stone. Large stone and Animus of Will are like super tight. I think it's the best user, maybe second best user of large stone in the entire game. Third if you include neutral cards. And in general, I think it's really strong. At worst, it does 9 damage, multi-strike. The low health does become a problem, but I think that's pretty easy to get around. There's a lot of ways to get around the 3 health. Same with the Animus of Speed. It's super vulnerable to spikes. Spikes will just kill your Animus of Will. Unlike the Animus of Speed, you can't do a kind of, I'm going to use Animus of Will to distract, because it's not quick. It'll just die to the unit that Seraph's creating. So you do lose that. But on the other end, the high roll potential of an Animus of Will is much easier to get, because you just need 1 large stone and suddenly Animus of Will is amazing. So given the dynamic between Animus of Speed and Animus of Will, I think Animus of Speed is a better non-buffed card. Animus of Will has much more high roll potential, but I would still put it equal to Animus of Speed in that it's a B. Certainly it's not that hard to get Animus of Will that's going to be very strong. You can even just get a Health Stone and then just use buff cards, and it's very, very good. Next, we have Awoken Hollow. Awoken Hollow has the text on Summon, gain 60 health, and then on Rejuvenate, gain 1 damage and 1 health. It's not as good as the other Hollow, the Thorned Hollow, but it still is pretty good. It's one of the better tanks, certainly one of the best tanks in the Awoken set. The hard part can be keeping it around long enough to take advantage of the high health, and if you don't have a lot of good healing, that extra 60 max health is not going to do a whole lot for you. However, if you do have a way of consistently healing the Awoken Hollow, it does end up pretty good. Like if you get, for example, an average of 2 rejuvenation triggers per round, and you go for 6-7 rounds, that's going to be an extra 12 damage, so it's going to be close to 30 damage, and then it's going to be, if you're assuming that you get to full health, something like 90 health, which is pretty good. Having a 90 health unit, it's a very good, strong tank to put in front of your other units. It's great when paired with one of the Animuses, because it's going to be really difficult for them to get through the Awoken Hollow. The one thing that keeps it from getting super powerful is the rejuvenation trigger numbers, the +1/+1, is really not enough. Even if you put multi-strike on the Awoken Hollow, you're still talking about a unit that caps out at 2 times 30, which isn't really a lot. And you don't want to put large stone on it because then you can't fit other units on the same floor. So it becomes a little bit problematic when you're looking at like real high roll potential, but I would say it's generally very strong without really the possibility of getting nuts. Because there are certainly other cards where you could have the same setup and it would get just as nuts and it would be much easier than with Awoken Hollow. So given that it's just a generally strong unit, fits really well into that grade of So given that it's just a generally strong unit, it fits really well into the grade of B, similar to the Animuses, and definitely goes well with an Animus in terms of getting a tank in there. In this case, you'd want to play it more as a support for another build. It doesn't really fit into many of the Awoken main builds, except maybe as part of like Rat Trap build where it's your tank, and then you put Wildington behind it, increasing capacity somewhere in the game. Okay, next is Edge Prior. So Edge Prior has text, healing spells cost -1 Ember on this floor. That makes all restores free. It makes Awake 2 cost. It makes Restoring Retreat, Restoration Detonation. All of those become cheaper. And it's good when you have a healing-oriented deck, and it is garbage when you don't. A 0/5 unit that isn't providing any benefit is trash tier. And it's not that every single build you're going to take is going to have healing. If you go with an Exile, if you have Exile Awoken, you get Edge Prior as a starting card. You're going to want to yeet it as soon as possible. It's even more priority, I would say, than getting rid of a Train Steward, because it just does absolutely nothing. So given that it can be very trash tier, this is going to be true of all the channelers. I can't give it a grade higher than a C. But the question is it a D? And for me, there is some really good high roll potential here. If you have a Restoration Detonation, or not a Restoration Detonation, an explosive sentient build, being able to have Edge Prior and then just machine gun restores becomes really good. Even better if you're machine gunning things like Awake or the Restoration Detonation, any of those, becomes really, really good. So I would say it does have some pretty good high roll potential in a lot of the builds, and is a big support for a lot of these rejuvenation, regen-oriented builds. And so with that, I don't give it a grade of D, I give it a grade of C. I think it's the worst of the... Or, I think it's not the worst of the channelers. I think it's pretty mediocre, though. It's a weak card that then has high potential, specifically in rejuvenation and regen-oriented builds. Husk Hermit. Husk Hermit is very average. That's not really all you can say about it. It's not really, doesn't have a high enough health to be a tank. It doesn't do enough damage to be a damage dealer. It's an okay way to clear out backliners if you have no other possibility. So for example, you can put Husk Hermit with an explosive sentient, and that's okay. You can get Husk Hermit with a quick Wildington, and it's okay. It's never going to be your carry. It's never going to be your tank unless you really don't have any other option. But it's average. It's not weak. You're never unhappy playing it, but it's certainly not going to be one that's going to go over the top. There are better cards that are similar to Husk Hermit that have much higher top-end potential when it comes to damage. So given that, it's just a generally average card. It fits really well into the C grade. Shattered Shell. Shattered Shell is the better version of Husk Hermit because it has scaling potential. It self-scales. It's really good with quick. It's really good with multi-strike. It's also very good with large stone, because then you have a good starting point where you're likely to get a lot of kills on 10 health or higher minions right from the beginning. It's not the best. I would say it's a little bit below Animus of Will in terms of top-end power, but it's fantastic at both killing backliners and then it's actually pretty good about fighting bosses because by then you've killed off a lot of backliners, you've gotten a lot of slay triggers, and the +3 is actually quite high. That +3, if you end up killing something like anywhere from 8 to 10 units, right, that's 24 damage or 30 damage. That's a lot of damage to add. And if you get that multi-striking, it gets even better. So I think it's a priority for multi-strike. It's a priority for quick. Fits really well into a quick Wildington build, and I quite like it a lot. The biggest issue is that it has a pretty low health total and starts off very weak. But even that 3 damage with a lot of the different, even Seraph fights, 3 damage is enough to kill the backliners. Can be problematic with Seraph Temperament because of the sap, but I think it's pretty easy to get out of that. You add +10 damage or you add a large stone and suddenly it's out of range of sap putting it to 0. So given that, it's pretty weak when it doesn't have all of that. So if you don't buff it and if it's not getting kills, it's incredibly weak. It's pretty bad. One of the lowest statted units in the game by base. Given that, I can't give it a grade of A, but I think the high roll potential puts it into a grade of B. Similar to an Animus, I would say better than Animus' speed, worse than Animus of will, in terms of high roll potential, and a little bit less consistent than both. Thorned Hollow. Thorned Hollow is one of, for some reason, my most consistent units in the game. It's very rare that I have a Thorned Hollow game that I lose. It does happen, but it's, as I said, it's very rare. I think it's much better than the Awoken Hollow because the Awoken Hollow doesn't really fit in either of the bursty front damage or backline damage, where Thorned Hollow has a very clear role as a tank that kills backliners. And tanks that kill backliners, I think, are some of the strongest units in the game, most consistent units in the game. And it's not very hard to get enough spikes to kill the backliner. You do 1 restore, it's got 4 spikes. And that's, so 2 restores is enough to kill almost every backliner in the game. 5 rejuvenation triggers is enough to kill all backliners in the game. So 10 is your damage threshold to kill any major backliner in any Seraph fight. And so that's for me like the great, that can it get, how hard is it to get 10 damage onto backliners? Thorned Hollow is pretty easy. 5 rejuvenation triggers. It's a fantastic unit to put regen on. It's a great unit for any type of build where you just need something to block for a heavy damage dealer. So what's not great about Awoken or Thorned Hollow is the max base health is 55, which is quite low. But you get 1 health stone on that, and it's now 80 health. That's going to be enough for most fights. Given how strong it is and how easy it is to take advantage of that strength, I think it is the first A unit for Awoken. I could be biased because of my track record using Thorned Hollow, but I really think that this combination of tankiness and backline damage is one of the strongest combinations you'll find in a lot of units, and it's very, very, very good. Then all you need is some way to do burst damage and you're set. Moving on, we have Wildwood Custodian. Text is draw +1 each turn. It's a 0/2 unit for 1. This is one that I would say I will take it sometimes, but it's certainly not going to be a high roll. Like, it's never going to be the most powerful thing in your deck. The text is good. Being able to draw an extra 1 each turn is pretty good. It's kind of weird in the Awoken clan because Awoken already has so much draw that sometimes you don't need that +1 draw. Can be overkill in terms of draw. But it's certainly not a bad card. It's certainly not a D grade, but I don't think it's ever going to be strong. It's always going to be just an average card that you use to get its text. Oftentimes you even put it on its own floor. You can use it as a distraction for Seraph or for any other flying bosses. And what's nice is that the draw happens, I believe, even if it dies. I can't remember if this is the same. Maybe it is if it dies, you lose the draw. But regardless, it's pretty easy to get at least a few draw out of the card. And if you drew 3 times with the card, it's excellent. Having a 1-cost draw 3 would be great. And even better that it's spread out across turns. But definitely not going to be a high roll, and sometimes it's completely worthless. But even still, I give it a grade of C, generally average card to put into your deck. Now into the rares. First rare is Shard Channeler. Text says spikes on friendly units deal +1 damage per spike. Important to note is that this is only when the Shard Channeler is alive, and if it dies the same time that the unit with spikes gets hit, it still applies. So if a sweep unit hits Shard Channeler and the front unit, it will take the +1 damage on the spikes, which is good. Obviously, anytime you have a spikes build, if you're doing a spicy country kitchen build, or if you're doing a stop hitting yourself build, any type of spikes oriented is going to love Shard Channeler. You want a Hellstone on it to keep it alive, but it's going to be very good. Outside of that, it's trash tier. It's a 0-2 for 1. The nice thing is that it's rare, which means that you're typically only taking it if it's coming in a draft. But just be cautious. Even if you have a little bit of spikes, it's probably not worth it. Typically, you want Shard Channeler to guarantee heavy damage on the front units. The threshold, any spikes over 10, you start to lose a lot of value. And so then until you get to something like 40 or 50 spikes, that middle area between 10 and 40 and 50 tends to not add so much value. Now, once you get like an insane amount of spikes, or insane amount of spikes damage, then it becomes a lot more valuable because you're getting a lot more out of it during Relentless, and you're sometimes able to kill front or middle units with just spikes alone. And that's really where Shard Channeler comes into play. So the high roll is quite good, but it's difficult to set up, and certainly when you don't have that, it's really bad. So given that, I put Shard Channeler as a C along with the other channelers. I think it's the best of the channelers because the high roll is really, really strong. It's really, really powerful, but it's not very consistent. But if you think about like with the Sentient spikes go 10, 20, 40. Shard Channeler with the Sentient at 40 spikes is really good because the difference between 40 spikes and 80 spikes is massive. Before that, it's not so good. And with a Thorn Hollow, it's not so good because you only need about 10 spikes to take value out of the backline clearing. So, but in that one build, Sentient 40 spikes build, or Little Fade, where you have spikes, then it becomes the nuts because you're talking about doubling from 100 to 200 or 40 to 80, and then it's really, really huge. Okay, next, Vine Mother. Vine Mother's pretty good. I didn't like it at first when I started playing, but I really, really started to like what Vine Mother offers. One, it offers a distraction during Seraph fights. That's often how I'm using her, is tossing her on the top floor by herself and just letting her generate stings for you. And turns out that drawing 1 and doing 10 damage every turn is really good. So yeah, it's certainly better than I thought when I started playing. It's definitely not going to be the most powerful card in your deck. The stings are not going to be, unless you have a very, very specific sting-oriented build, they're not going to be the nuts. But it's a actually strong unit. It's a surprisingly strong unit. It's also a decent tank. Not really great, but it's a decent tank. 35 health is nothing to scratch at. Certainly you don't want to use it for its damage. But given that it's, I think the having the stings auto-generated every turn actually is really valuable. And so given that, I give it a grade of B as a strong unit. Next is Wilting Sapwood. Wilting Sapwood has text on Revenge when it takes damage. Gain 1 Ember. Wilting Sapwood is, in its current state, very, very bad. It's bad for a couple of reasons. One, it's a 2 cost, 3 capacity unit. It's the only 2 cost unit in Awoken. And it's tough to take advantage of the Revenge trigger given the current health that it has. I'm almost always disappointed in Wilting Sapwood. And Awoken's in this weird spot where it has such low Ember costs on most of its cards that it's really hard to take advantage of the Ember gain. It's hard to get the Ember gain consistently without the Wilting Sapwood just dying. And it's a huge, clunky card to play because of the size and the Ember cost. I think in its current state, this is the first card I'm going to give an outright D to. I think it's just generally weak for the cost it takes to put it out there and the current stats that it has. What I think it needs is either the Ember cost to be reduced to 1, the capacity to be reduced to 2, which doesn't really fit the holo. All the holos are 3. So I would recommend the cost should go down to 1. 1 cost for this would be worth C grade. It would definitely bump it up. It would make it an average card rather than a weak card. That 1 Ember cost, that extra Ember cost ends up being difficult in a deck like Awoken, which is typically very low Ember cost until you get things like Cycle of Life and Awake, which have high Ember costs, and if you get those in the same turn, it becomes very problematic. The alternative would be to give it a similar summon health trigger. I think if it had a similar summon health trigger, then it would be much better. If it had something like even summon 30 health. The 30 health base is so low for a holo, and for something that needs revenge triggers, it's really difficult. Even if you upgrade it twice, it caps out at 80, which is like the base for the Awoken holo. So I think it just needs either an Ember reduction or a summon health trigger to put it into a C tier. I think it would need quite a bit more to put it into a B tier for me. So maybe that's controversial, but I have not really been able to make it work very well in any of my decks, and I've almost always regretted taking it. Okay, that's it for units. So let's jump into Awoken spells, starting with the common spells. First common spell is Restore. Restore is the starter card for the Sentient Standard Awoken clan. Text is Restore 2 health, apply 1 regen for 1 Ember. It's good. It's not bad at all. Certainly not going to be, winning any awards for most powerful Restore card. But on anything which has a rejuvenation trigger, that's 2 triggers. That's the trigger when you use it, the 2 health, and it's a trigger on the regen. And turns out that that's really strong. In fact, it's stronger than some other non-common cards. Certainly one of the better starter cards. It's great for, as I said, rejuvenation triggers. It's a good regen stack card. It's especially good at 0 cost, so having an edge prior or minusing the cost of restore becomes even more valuable, especially in a deck like the Sentient, or the deck like the Awoken, where you're going to be drawing a lot. Having free restores ends up being really, really strong. Yeah, and it's a good card to put plus 10s onto. I would definitely not ever use Stackstone on it, but getting a plus 10 to it, having it do 12 instant health becomes really good for 0 cost if you get it minus cost as well. So yeah, I think it's just a strong card. It's never going to be the nuts, but yeah, strong card. Give it a B. Certainly one of the top starter cards. Next up, we have the other starter card, Root Seeds. Root Seeds has text, apply 2 damage, draw 1 next turn. Root Seeds is the best starter card in the game, like hands down. It's the best card if you can make it 0 cost. It's just really, really good. Turns out that draw in Monster Train is incredibly valuable. Having it on a starter card that's also adding 2 damage is really, really good. It's a fantastic incant card. It's a fantastic buff card. And if you're like me, you find you will play Root Seeds almost every time you draw them because the draw is just so valuable. Not really much negative. I'm trying to think if I've ever had a build where I actually removed a Root Seeds. I don't think I have one. I think I always keep Root Seeds. It's so much better to make it 0 cost than to get rid of it because it draws it replaces its own cost of drawing, and you get an enhancement. And plus 2 damage is not nothing. It ends up being pretty valuable, especially on in a deck that has a lot of multi-strike potential, both on your Wildington and on your Animus of Will, plus if you put it on any other unit. And there's a lot of multi-strike in the game. It's great for sweeps. It's just good. This is a good card. It's never going to be the nuts, so it's not an S tier for certain. But it is, and spoiler, this is the only starter card that I believe is A grade. It's consistently strong card. And it's sometimes especially powerful when you get 0 cost on it. So yeah, there you go. Root Seeds, the only grade A common card, or not a grade A common card, grade A starter card. and it's one of the only starter cards that I think is better than a lot of other spells in the game. Okay, moving on. Steel Enhancer. Steel Enhancer is pretty good. It's great with Animus of Will, and with Wildenton. It's great with any multi-striker in general. Great, maybe it's even too strong. It's pretty good. Certainly, you get more value out of the 3 damage than the 3 health typically, but that 3 health can also sometimes make a difference. If you have an Animus of Will and it's not been upgraded except for like maybe Quick or something like that, getting that extra 3 health might make it survive a sweep or make it survive a spikes. So it ends up being okay. It was once upon a time, I would say A tier. That was when you could apply double stack to it, and you could double stack enhancements. Now that you can't do it, I would say it's not as good, but it's not trash for certain. It's kind of in a weird spot. I would say it's like right in the middle between a C and a B, because sometimes it ends up being pretty average, and the fact that it's 0 cost kind of pushes it up. So given that it's a 0 cost, this is, I honestly don't even know if I agree with myself here. That might be a B. The 0 cost might push it to a B. If not, it's like right on the very, very, very edge, because it's also such a good incanter because of the 0 cost. I may have to come back on this. I may eat my words for this, but this is the closest B C card in the set, if it is actually a C, and it might not actually be a C. It might be better as a B, but right now we'll call it a C, knowing that it's like right on the edge because of the 0 cost. If it was 1 cost, it would absolutely be a C, but having it start at 0 cost. And I actually remember one of the reasons why I gave it this way. One of the reasons I gave it this is because it's one of the few cards in the game you can apply no stones to. You cannot upgrade this card with anything at all. There's no magic power, there's no double stack. The only one you can do is holdover, and I don't know that it's actually a great holdover card. So it's it's still, I'd say it's right on the edge. Continuing on, stings. Stings are strange. Base, I think they're not that great. 10 damage plus 1 draw. It's basically get 10 damage, replace itself for 0. As a standalone card, I think it's very average. It's not super. It can go super powerful. In fact, I would even say it's not even average. It's weak. Base card is weak, but there is some potential for it to become nuts if you have all of the Sting upgrades, or if you have like a heavy incant build, then it's quite good. But in all other decks, I find it to be very, very weak. Yeah, I would say that's exactly how to describe it. It's a card that can be very powerful, but on its own with no other supplemental support is weak. And given that, I think it fits really well as a C tier card. So it's a card that has a lot of potential to be very good, but without any of that in place, adding it to like a normal deck is not going to be that great for you. Because just doing 10 damage is not good on a front damage unit. It's like the equivalent, I mean, it's better than Frozen Lance, but only just. Because you can't target it. However, Sting will show up again in other areas where it is quite good. Vine Grasp. Vine Grasp is borderline D tier for me. The text reads, deal 3 damage and move that unit to the front. That movement can become strong. Being able to move a backliner to the front to then get a kill on it. Being able to move your own unit to the front. If you, like, for example, descend a unit and then you want it to the front, it can be pretty good for that because 3 damage isn't that much. But 0 cost for 3 damage in general is pretty bad. It's interesting because it's better than a torch, but it's also worse than a torch because if you're doing your own units, oftentimes you're torching to get rid of them. I guess I don't know. It's kind of in a weird spot. It's a better torch, but even torch was a C level card because it's not that good, especially late game. I don't know. Vine Grasp's been a weird spot. I think it's pretty bad. I typically will yeet it out of my deck eventually. But it has its strong moments. So I can't put it directly in D tier. I think it's probably best suited for a C tier, where it's generally pretty weak, but has some moments where it's actually really strong because you can move and manipulate units around. And the fact that it's 0 cost. Yeah, especially with 0 cost. Maybe it's not even close to a D. The fact that it's 0 cost. If it was 1 cost, it would be probably D tier. Given that it's already a 0 cost, I would probably say that mid-C level. Yeah, it's probably a mid-C, not closer to a D. Yeah, if it was 1 cost, it would be much, much worse. Okay, I think that's a good spot for it then. So it's a C tier, middle of the grade C tier, that has some strong moments but can be quite weak when you don't have the need to move units around. Glimmer is one of those like very, very early new player traps where it seems so good, and it is good, but it seems so much better than it actually is. It's good if you add +10 and make it free. Outside of that scenario, it tends to be pretty weak. The 2 damage is pretty good early game. It's not good at all late game. So you basically have to get +10 damage on it, or +20 if you get it to consume. And then it's okay. But I would say it's weaker than it seems. It's certainly not a D tier, and I almost don't think it's a C tier. I think it's generally strong card because it's so easy to get the +10 damage on it or +20 damage on it, and then it's actually really good because it clears off the 10 health units. Hard for me. I think it's one of those where if you don't buff it, it's weak. It would be a D tier. Once you buff it, it's more like a B tier. It becomes strong. The difference between not having and having the damage stone becomes huge with something like Glimmer because of its AoE. So it's close. It's either a C or a B because it can be really strong, but unupgraded, it's really, really weak. And you don't always get stat, +10 or +20 upgrades. Well, I think you get either one, but I would probably put it as like a C+ or a B-. It's really close to a B. But it's definitely not as good as it seems when you first start playing the game. And you'll have a lot of times when you'll have Glimmer and it just won't work out the way you want. But this is debatably a B. This is right on the edge of being a B. It's C++ or B-. It's certainly not strong in all circumstances. But it's never going to be like crazy powerful either. Yeah, I think C++ is like a really good spot for it. It's kind of hard. It's right between a C and a B. But I think the fact that it's can be really weak if you have no upgrades on it, I think it's worth keeping as a C. Next up, Restoration Detonation. Restoration Detonation is also one that I feel like is a little bit of a trap card. It's really good in certain situations, and then otherwise it's pretty bad. If you're not healing anything, it's dead weight. If you are healing things, and you're healing a lot of damage, or healing a lot of health, then it's really good. It is not good when paired with regen, because oftentimes if you have a lot of regen on a unit, it has full health, so you're never going to have an opportunity to take advantage of Restoration Detonation. It's typically better when you don't have a lot of regen and just want consistent healing. Then getting something like a holdover Restoration Detonation, even like holdover +10, you could realistically get close to 100 damage every time you play it, and then it's really good. But as a base card, I think it clashes so much with the regen builds that it's difficult to make it work really consistently. And it's not always that you have a unit you want to kill on the same floor of the unit you want to heal. So then you're just doing 10 healing, which is not great for 1. 10 healing for 0 would be okay, but 10 healing for 1 is not particularly good. I think it fits more into like a C grade, where it's pretty weak when it isn't used in the right circumstances, and I don't always take it. You really need to have it be in the circumstance where you want to be able to heal and you don't use regen. That's a situation where it becomes very powerful. In other situations, it's like not so consistent. Next up is Wildwood Sap. Wildwood Sap is a really strong regen card. I think it's the best. I mean, it's certainly the highest base regen. It's one of the best candidates for double stack because 10 regen is way better than 5 regen, but 5 regen is way better than 3 regen and 1 regen because of the way regen works. The more of it you have, not only does it, the more healing you get, but it's the longer that it lasts. It's one of the best cards to duplicate 5 times or even once, because if you play, then you get 10 regen out of 2 cards is way better than 5 regen for 1 card. And it's very rare that it's just not good. I can't even. I guess if you have a hollow deck, then it's bad. But you're gonna take hollow from the 1 in like 60 chance you get that event, and then you take hollow as the thing you're getting. And that's going to happen much after, typically much later than you have Wildwood Sap. And so if you have Wildwood Sap, you wouldn't take that event anyway. So I don't see any circumstances where Wildwood Sap is bad. Even just the 5 regen ends up adding a lot of value to a lot of units. If you have a Thorned Hollow, Wildwood Sap equals 10 spikes over time. So it's just a really solid card all around. It's rarely bad. It's rarely weak. It's rarely average. It's just good all around. And given that, I think it's definitely a grade A. It's a strong card that has nuts potential and is the enabler for like insane regen builds. Moving on, Sharpen. Sharpen was a hard one for me as well. A lot of these Awoken cards are really hard. They sit right in between this kind of C and B tier level. The problem with Sharpen is it's expensive. It's a 2-cost card, and you get similar types of value out of 1 or 0-cost cards. And it's at a weird spike number. 4 spikes is not really like a threshold that you want. The thresholds you want are 2 spikes, 5 spikes, 10 spikes. Those are like the 3 main thresholds. So 4 spikes sits in this weird spot where it can't kill 5 health units, which there's a lot of 5 health units in the game. And you have to play it 3 times to kill a 10 health unit. And there's quite a few 10 health units in the game. So yeah, it sits in this really strange spot where it's not enough that 2 applications gets you to 10 and 1 application doesn't get you to 5. With double stack, it's a little bit better, but then you have a 3-cost card where you're getting 4 damage and 8 spikes, which is a lot to pay for spikes. Where Sharpen becomes really good is like -1 in holdover. Then it's a really good card. Outside of that, for me, it's very average or even weak because it doesn't add enough value for the Ember cost you're putting into it. And it's very rare for me that I'm taking Ember when I'm having Awoken in the deck because typically when I run Awoken, I want cheap. A lot of cards and a lot of cheap cards. And Sharpen doesn't really fit that. It's an expensive card for what it gives you. But definitely can be crazy, and I'll take it. Anytime I have a spike-oriented deck, I will take it. But I typically then try to reduce the cost so that it's playable. Given that, I would say it's a C-tier card with a really high potential, but is very weak unupgraded, and very weak unless you have other spikes supporting it. Or spike bonuses, like +1 damage on spikes or things like that. And the +4 damage, you can get way more damage for cheaper. So you definitely don't take it for its damage. You take it for its spikes. And this is the last point I should make about it, is it's kind of contradictory. It's not often that you want high damage and high spikes. Better would have been +3 health and 4 spikes, but there's already a card that does that. So, or even more health than that. So I think this combination of damage plus spikes is a little bit weird, and I don't think it fits so well in most builds. All right, uncommon. I think this is the first, yeah. So now we're into uncommon cards, starting with Ensnare. Ensnare text is apply rooted 1 to an enemy unit and draw 1 the next turn. I am always disappointed in Ensnare. It's not awful. It's not like it's a 0-cost card, so it's better than a lot of the cards that are already 1 cost because it draws itself. So it's a card that replaces itself and it costs 0. But I just don't really feel like the rooted ends up being as valuable as most other cards that I could play. And I mean, getting holdover on it is okay because then you can kind of like permanently root a unit. But I'm often finding that rooting units ends up making things complicated. It's just like kicking the rock down the road, right? It's just making it more difficult later on. It is better if you already have root, because then you can apply multiple root to something, and that turns out to be a lot more valuable than a single root. It can also, you can do kind of some tricky things, like you can use it to kind of keep a, what are they called? The units out of Ember Drain. You can like permanently use Ensnare to keep them on the bottom floor and prevent them from putting Ember Drain on your units. So there are some applications for it, but I just typically find that it ends up being worse than before, and I've just kicked the problem down the road, and then now I have to deal with it, and it's even much worse because now there's more units on that floor. The other application for it that can be pretty good is that you root a unit that is paired with a boss, so that the unit is stuck on the bottom floor, and the boss goes up, and it dies when the boss moves up, when the boss destroys the lower floor. So that application is also pretty good. So it's not D tier. It has some applications that make it pretty strong, but outside of those applications, I find it to be very weak. And given that, I think it's definitely a C, maybe even a C minus card. And again, what's pushing it is that it's a 0 cost. If it was a 1 cost, it would absolutely be a D. But the fact that it's 0 cost by default puts it into a C tier. Yeah. Because one of the things, and I should mention this, maybe this is a bad time to mention it, but there's always this argument, well, you can just minus the cost of things. But the problem is that there's a lot of things that, there are things that go insane when you minus 1 cost, and there are things that go from being trash tier to being mediocre when you minus the cost. So if you had an Ensnare at 1 cost, you could say, oh yeah, you can make it a 0 cost, and then it's like an okay card. But are you going to really do that over making your Awake cheaper, or making your Cycle of Life cheaper, or making your Root Seeds cheaper? I certainly wouldn't. And so for me, it's the argument that you can minus the cost of it is not a great argument, because you're having to compare that with the trade-off of not minusing the cost of a better card. So that's why for me it sits in C tier, and definitely at 1 cost would be D tier. Next up is Invigorating Solution. Text is consume, draw +3 cards next turn for 0. It's a really good spell. It's a great incanter. It's a great way to set up a powerful turn where you're drawing a lot of cards. The fact that it consumes is actually okay. It means that you can get it out of the deck, use it once, get a really powerful turn, and then it's not clogging up your deck in the future. But it's also a pretty good candidate for removing consume and -1. Make it a 0 cost, draw 3 cards whenever you draw it, and can keep that chain. If you have few enough cards, you can like perpetually draw your whole hand by using Invigorating Solution. So it's got some really strong applications, and at worst, it's an average card. Playing 1 card to draw 3 cards the next turn is almost always worth it. So for me, it sits in that like nice, even B tier spot where you're happy to have it. It's never going to be likely, it's not consistently so strong, but it's just a good card. And I would fill it into most decks as just a way to enable a good amount of draw the next turn. So it's pretty good. The bad applications are when you already have a lot of draw, and then it's just overkill draw, which can happen. It's not so often, but it can happen. And then it's pretty worthless because you drew a card that you weren't going to take advantage of at all. But I would say that's pretty rare. Most of the time you are drawing all 3 cards and taking advantage of that. So I think it's pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. Next is Preserved Thorns. Preserved Thorns is very similar to the last card we looked at, except it does an additional 30 damage, and you get those draws for the entire rest of your game. Given that, this may surprise you, I actually think Preserved Thorns is really good. 30 damage that you can kind of split how you want ends up being pretty good. Having it incantable, and this is where for me it's the big difference between the previous one, so the Invigorating Solution and Preserved Thorns, is Preserved Thorns is 4 incants in a single card, which is absolutely crazy. 4 incants on almost any incant unit is at worst +8/+8, which is really, really, really good on a unit. it's a lot of armor if you have an armor. It's a lot of frost if you have a frost incant. Even on Wildington, it's at worst +4 damage onto Wildington. Plus you get the draw. Plus you get the 30 damage. At worst, it's +3 draw, 30 damage. That's the worst situation. I guess it does kind of muddy your deck, but I would say it's very rare that you get super upset about Preserve Thorns. So this was maybe surprising, and maybe you guys would disagree, but I think this is one of the better cards in the set. Stings by themselves, not as good. Preserve Thorns, really good. 3 stings at once in 1 card, I find really, really powerful. So given the huge high roll potential with incants and with other uses of Preserve Thorns, and the fact that at worst it's 30 damage that you can split between floors, +3 draw for 1 card, I think it's really good. I put it as a grade A. What's really cool is if you get Preserve Thorns and then you duplicate it a bunch of times and get any Sting artifact, and suddenly it's nuts. Or you remove Consume from it, and then you're just like incanting and incanting and incanting and incanting. So there's a lot of applications where this becomes insane. So many applications where it becomes insane that I think it definitely fits in the A tier. But yeah, that might surprise you, but I actually think it's one of the better cards in the set. And I take it almost every time it comes up, and I will duplicate it a lot of the time, because I find especially in incant builds, the 4 incant for 1 card is really strong. Pyregrow. Pyregrow used to be D tier. Text used to read, draw a card and reduce its cost to 0. Or draw a... Was it a card? Or I think it was a spell. Draw a spell and reduce its cost to 0, which was pretty bad because there was a lot of spells that are already 0. Or you could draw dead weights. It's certainly better now. So now the text reads, consume, draw -2 cards next turn, +1 Ember for the rest of the battle. Pyregrow is great in that it enables you to have a lot of 2-cost cards. I would say I rarely, if ever, take Ember when I'm playing Awoken. Certainly Awoken primary, but oftentimes Awoken secondary, because so many of the cards are 0 cost or 1 cost that you can make 0 cost. But Pyregrow really solidifies that I don't need to take Ember when I play Awoken. Yes, there are times when you get the Ember and it's not what you need, and the -2 card draw on some turns can be really problematic. But I find that, like, in general, the payoff of being able to have 1 permanent Ember, especially if you've taken like +2 draw, that's going to go from 7 to 5. It's not that big of a deal, and you're often playing a lot of draw anyway. So imagine you get Pyregrow and you get Preserve Thorns in the same turn. You're going to draw +3, -2. You end up still with a +1. And so many cards in Awoken end up drawing you cards. It's so easy to negate the negative part of Pyregrow and the fact that it's 0 cost. I think at 1 cost, it would be at C tier. But given that it's 0, I think it fits right nicely into the B tier. I would not typically remove Consume unless you like really have a high cost deck. But in general, I find it to be pretty good. Engraft. I really like Engraft. I think it's one of the better cards. It's pretty easy to take advantage of all of the different things it's giving you. So you get a restore, which the base restore is 1, that's like whatever. But the real benefit of Engraft is that it gets a rejuvenation trigger. You get to gain an Ember, so it replaces itself with Ember, and you get to draw 1 next turn, so it replaces itself with draw. You make it 0 cost. Suddenly it's gaining you Ember, and you add +10 to it, and now it's gaining a decent amount of health for no cost and a card replacement. So I think it's pretty easy to make it really good. However, there are definitely going to be times when it's worthless. And the worthless times are when you have no rejuvenation triggers, you don't really need 1 healing, and you may not even need the extra Ember. But I think at worst, it's an average card, and it has the potential to be really, really strong. Given that, I think it's a fit quite well with a B tier. It's not the best card. It's borderline A tier, I would say, though, because in most situations it's strong, but there are situations where it ends up just being very average. And given that those situations exist and they can come up with a lot of different builds, where you just don't need the healing and it's like almost on par with like a Sting at that point. Unless you get it to 0 cost, and then it's a little bit better than a Sting. Those moments do exist, and I've had a lot of decks where I took Engraft and kind of was like, it's just not really doing much for me. I don't need the Ember, or I don't need the draw. And in those situations, then it's not very good at all. So it's not quite an A, but it's close. It's like a B+, very close to an A card. Pyre Shards. This might be controversial. I think Pyre Shards is a bad card. I think it doesn't give you enough spikes. We talked about different spike tier levels. So for me, that's 2, 4, and 10. It doesn't give you, or 2, 5, and 10. At 4, it's getting you the 2 spikes to kill the 2 health units, but not enough to kill the 5 and 10 health units. And then if you would say, okay, well, I have other spike applicators on top, well, then why do you have Pyre Shards? Because Pyre Shards is not going to get you to 40 spikes. It's going to get you from 2 spikes to 6 spikes, 2 spikes to 10 spikes, or 6 spikes to 10 spikes. It's going to really, it's just not enough value comes out of the spikes for me for what it costs. I think at a 0 cost, it would be a C tier, borderline B tier, depending. But at 1 cost, I think it's not good enough. And it's really not a priority to minus the cost because it's a consume card. And you don't want to remove consume because then you have a 2 cost apply 4 spikes, which is worse than sharpen. Sharpen applies 4 spikes, but at least you get 4 damage out of it. And if you double stack it, it's apply 8 spikes, which is, again, just a weirdly awkward amount of spikes to add. It's not enough to instantly get you 10, but you paid 2 Ember for it. So I think this needs to either be 0 cost or add 1 spike. You put this to 5, apply 5 spikes, then I think it's significantly better because it hits you right on that threshold where you can put it on a unit with no spikes and it instantly kills the majority of backliners in the game. And you double stack it and it kills all backliners in the game. So that's what I think it needs. I think it needs to have either +1 spike or it needs to be 0 cost, and then it would be C tier. If you applied both a 0 for 5 spikes, it might even be B tier. But as it is, I give it a D. I think it needs to be slightly modified, slightly buffed to make it more valuable. Bramble-Lash. Bramble-Lash is a very feast or famine card. If you have spikes, it's good. If you don't have spikes, it's a dead weight that costs 2. So given that situation, it's a very good high roll. It's a center of the don't touch me build. It's a way to kill or stop hitting yourself build. It's a way to burst out front enemy units. You can kill flying bosses with it. But all of that high roll doesn't do you any good if you have no spikes. And the fact that you can start with it as a starter card and not have spikes is really bad. It is really bad in a Wild Intent deck for the most part, unless you happen to get a Thorn Hollow or some other way to get spikes on units. And given all of that together, I think it can't be any higher than a C, but it certainly is a C because it has a huge high roll potential. But outside of that high roll potential, it's just bad. It's a dead weight. It doesn't do anything. If you have Bramble-Lash and you do have a high roll Bramble-Lash build, it's a priority duplicate card. Duplicate it, get a lot of them, make it 1 cost. Make it 1 cost with holdover. You get like 4 of these and you're just going to blast through units. On a sentient base, it does 400 damage. So it's really, really good when it's good, and it's really, really bad when it's bad. So there you go. C card. Focus Growth. Focus Growth is good. 2 Ember to draw 2 is by itself pretty good. Being able to restore 25 health is even better. It's a rejuvenation trigger. It can heal up your hollows really well, or any other tanks that are taking damage, and it replaces itself and draws another card. It's one of the priority targets for me for a -1 cost, because a 1 cost restore 25 health, draw 2 is nuts. So at worst, it's average, and like that's the very, very worst. Normally, it's really, really good, and minus cost makes it really, really strong. So given that, give it a grade of B, but it is a B+, almost A. The situations where it's not an A would be any time that you don't need the healing. So you have full health units, then you're paying 2 cost to draw 2 is average. That's pretty good. It's not great. It's average. If you are getting the healing out of it, it's already a low B. If it's -1, it's a high B. It's already an A. So -1 cost. At 1 cost, this is already an A. At 2 cost, it's a B+. The 2 draw just ends up being really valuable, and I think the healing on top makes it just a really good card. Really, really good starter card to get. If you happen to have this as your uncommon, you're pretty happy. Restoring Retreat. Restoring Retreat is interesting. The biggest problem with Restoring Retreat is that you're healing a unit, and if you're healing a unit, you typically want it at the front, but if you're descending it, you're putting it at the back. So it's great for overstacking floors. It's not particularly great for healing because it's only 10 healing, and there are cheaper 10 healing cards. So you're using it for basically 2 reasons. One is to heal or to descend enemy units, but then you're healing those enemy units, or you're using it to overstack a floor. The overstack you can't like ignore the overstack. The overstack is really, really good. The fact that you can overstack by descending is really good. But outside of that application, it's kind of weird. It's the worst of the manipulate rooms, I think, or it's maybe the second worst. It's close to worst, if not the worst of the moving things around cards. Certainly the worst descend card. Just because the healing plus the descend makes it really awkward. You're healing a unit that then goes in the back, which is kind of, as I said, it's just kind of awkward. And you're healing enemy units if you're descending them. But it can overstack a floor, and that can't be ignored. Given that, I would give it a grade of C. Has some good potential to be strong, but outside of that, it's kind of awkward and weak. It's not also a great card to start off with in your starter deck. -1 cost to it makes it a little bit better. And then if you're going to do an overstack, you do -1 and hold over, and then you can just like stack up a huge floor, and that becomes really strong. But outside of that application, it's pretty weak. Awake. Awake was better. It got nerfed. The regen went down. But it's still a really, really good card. Turns out that 30 healing is still pretty good. And it's one of the few, the only other card is Restore that does double rejuvenation triggers. At base, it's actually kind of average, but -1 cost, 2 for 30 and regen 2, and this would be a priority minus cost. It becomes insane. Don't double stack it. Don't add any magic power. You just want to reduce the cost. Maybe preserve it. So get permafrost, maybe holdover, but absolutely getting this down to 2 cost makes it insane. It's really good with Edge Prior as well to reduce the cost of it. It's fantastic on any of the hollows, apart from the Wilting Sapwood. But not A tier, but solid B tier. If you -1 or -2, it bumps it up to an A tier. But at base, it's still just really good. It's a really good card, and at worst, it's average, but normally it ends up being really strong for you. So I think it's any type of regen build, you want something like this. Any type of rejuvenation triggers, you want Awake. So, okay, now we're into the final cards, the rare cards. Starting with Awoken's Rail Spike. Awoken's Rail Spike is one of the components of several different infinite builds, or infinite draw, infinite play builds. It's kind of clunky to make it work, but it can work. You usually pair it with like a Scholar, Impish Scholar, or you remove Consume, and you have an Ember generation, and you have 2 of them, and you're drawing, each are drawing each other, and then you have this kind of infinite loop where you use it, and then you gain Ember, use the second one, gain Ember, use this again, and then you kind of have this infinite cycle. Outside of those applications, I find it to be very weak. The biggest problem is that Awoken already has a lot of low-cost spells, and if you're drawing those cards, you're feeling pretty sad. It's pretty good in an incant build because you can play it and then play a bunch of zero-cost cards, which ends up being okay. but I would say there are a lot of circumstances where I just can't justify playing it. And then you play it and you feel really bad when you don't draw what you need. So it has a really depressing, low, weak level, but it's also really strong when you have it in the right builds, incant builds or infinite decks, or decks which have higher than normal costs. Then it's pretty good. It's also really good with Volatile Gauge, because Volatile Gauge typically you then have 1 to 3. Minusing 2 means that you're almost always going to get those things 0 cost in the future, and then it is actually a pretty good card. It's also a really good card in combination with the first Hell Pact, and it's certainly a better spike than the Hellhorned, Spike of the Hellhorned. So with that, I think it's still not great. Give it a good C. It has high roll potential, but when it doesn't work, it's a pretty weak card. Unleash the Wildwood. Unleash the Wildwood text. Restore friendly units to full health. This is the second best card in the game. It's the priority for holdover. You have holdover on Unleash the Wildwood, and you win. I mean, it's a little hyperbolic, but it's so hard to lose when your units will never maintain any damage. It's a rejuvenation trigger. It is the best healing spell in the game. At 1 cost, this is still incredibly strong. But the fact that it's 0 cost, heal all units, and it's also not friendly unit, not restore a friendly unit, it is restore all friendly units. It's absolutely nuts. I think that this card should be modified. I think it's too good. It's an auto pick in almost every single deck. The only time you don't take Unleash the Wildwood is specifically if you have hollow units. Outside of that one extremely rare circumstance, you take this every time. It's so good. Given how good it is, I think it's currently S tier. I think it needs to be modified to be 1 cost. Then it puts it in A tier. So it's not an auto pick, but it's still really good. Or it needs to be restore a friendly unit, would put it to A tier. But given that it is all units, full health, 4-0, it's an auto pick. You take this card if it draws. The only time you don't take this card is if there is one other card, and we'll come to that in a future clan. There's one card that's better than Unleash the Wildwood, but other than that, this is an auto pick. You take it. It's so good, and I think it needs to be modified a little bit to bring down its power level. Next, Channel Song. Channel Song is one of those that, again, has insane high roll potential. If you can consistently play it multiple times on a single unit, that unit's going to be absolutely insane. That's a really hard setup, though. And given how hard that setup is, the fact that you often have to draw your unit, let it pass, and then Channel Song to get back, that's slowing your deck down. It's really clunky. The fact you can't apply it to a unit that's already in your hand makes it difficult. What's good about it is that it consumes. Once you use it, it's gone. But there are so many times when Channel Song is just a dead weight that you're just getting rid of. It's a blight you get rid of. That happens so often that it certainly can't be higher than a C. But it's not D tier because there are some applications of Channel Song that can be really nuts, where you're buffing the same unit over and over and over again, making it insane, and then you play it. Or even just playing it once, getting +20/+20 on a unit is just good. You get it on an Animus of Will, that's 60 damage that you just added to the Animus of Will, plus 20 health. So I think there's a lot of high roll, but I think it's when it doesn't work, and it doesn't work a lot of the time, it's really bad. Given that, I think it's a C grade card. Wildwood Tome. Quick is just pretty good. It's not your favorite incants, or not your favorite stone to apply to a unit. It's not the best buff in the game, but it's pretty good. And there's almost always a way to play Wildwood Tome on something that will take advantage of it. It's good on sweep units, it's good on multi-strikers, it's good on anything with a slay trigger, it's good on any of your Gorgers. It prevents a lot of damage. It's just generally pretty good. I would say it's almost never weak. Sometimes you can't play it because you have other priorities to do in your hand, and that 1 cost you maybe can't afford. but I would say you almost always play Wildwood Tome when you draw it, and you're almost always happy about the quick that you get out of it. Given that, it just being a generally good card, I think it fits really nicely into B. It's never going to be insane. I don't think there's ever a time when quick just completely changes the game. Maybe it does with some sweep units where you never take damage on your front unit ever again. But I think in general it ends up being just strong, just a strong effect. So it's good. No, don't remove consume from it because you typically don't need a lot of quick. One quick is enough on one good unit to take care of you most of the time. Adaptive Mutation. Adaptive Mutation, so the text reads, restore a friendly unit to full health and then swap its damage and health. It's interesting. I think it is, when it's bad, it's bad. There are a lot of units where you would definitely prefer not to swap their health and damage. In fact, most units you would prefer not to swap their health and damage. You don't want to use it on a tank because then your tank dies very quickly because most tanks have pretty poor damage numbers. So when do you want to use Adaptive Mutation? Well, there is a specific interaction where Adaptive Mutation considers your effective, not your raw damage. And so if you have buffs that increase your damage, specifically rage, when you do the swap, it takes your effective damage, your damage plus your rage, and swaps that with your health. And that ends up being really, really good. So Angriest Prince build, this is insane. If you have your, what is it called? Nameless Siren, really, really good. Any rage units become nuts with Adaptive Mutation, and that's where you get a lot of value out of it, and that's where it's a nuts, like the nuts card, right? Outside of that, it tends to be really weak. So given that it's only valuable in a specific circumstance where you are buffing your unit with rage, it's hard to recommend it generally. But when you have that, take it every time. If you have a really heavy rage build, Adaptive Mutation fits in really nicely. So given that there's a weak side and a strong side, again, fits into the C grade. And I believe this is the last one. No, there's one more after this. Spreading Spores. So Spreading Spores, text reads, apply Regen 2 and Spikes 2, add a copy of this card to your draw pile. Spreading Spores used to be an A card back when Double Stack was free. So Double Stack didn't increase Ember cost. Because getting +4 regen and +4 spikes per Spreading Spores, and then you could make it 1 cost, was really, really good. +4 regen, +4 spikes for 3 is not very good. And +4 regen, +4 spikes for 2 is average. It's strong, or I should say it's strong, but it's not amazing. So now the best thing to do is to make it 0 cost or 1 cost, and then it's okay. At 0 cost, it's good. At 1 cost, it's average. It's certainly not the nuts card it used to be, but it's still pretty good. It's really, really good against Seraph the Temperate, or not Seraph the Diligent, because you can consume it, but then it actually keeps adding cards to your deck. But yeah, that nerf to Stackstone really hurt Spreading Spores a lot. I think it took it from kind of A, B tier all the way down to C tier, because it's so hard to take advantage of it now. The best application for it is making it 0 cost. And 0 cost for 2 regen, 2 spikes is pretty good, but it's not amazing. Certainly not as good as the 1 cost, 4 regen, 4 spikes was that it used to be. I think this could be buffed a little bit. Maybe even just 3 regen, 3 spikes would be enough to put it into a B tier. But it's not weak. It's not awful. It's just very weak until it's been buffed. And finally, Cycle of Life. The last card. Text reads, apply 10 health and add 3 spikes. This is a really good card. There are not a lot of cards that add health, and certainly none that add this much health. And even though, yes, you do take it because the spikes are pretty good, I'm often taking it just for the +10 health. And it's base, at worst, 3 3 Ember for 10 health and spikes is still pretty good, but this becomes a priority, reduce the cost. Having this be 1 cost is insane. Having this be 2 cost is really strong. And since the barrier to get to that point is so low, it's so easy to get minus cost, and you would absolutely minus the cost of this because every reduced cost here is so much value out of the card. For me, it's A tier. I think even unbuffed, it's worth playing. It's even unbuffed, it's strong on your tank. The 3 spikes is not really what you're playing it for. You're playing it for the 10 health, but the 3 spikes is just icing on the cake. Even 3 cost, if you just removed the spikes entirely and just had 4/3 apply 10, it would still be a B tier card because it's a lot of HP you're adding to a unit, and you can repeat it over and over again. The spikes is what pushes it into from a B tier to an A tier. Don't double stack it. That 6 spikes is not worth it. 3 spikes is enough what you're getting out of it. It's mostly played for the health, and the 3 spikes are just there as an added benefit to your adding to your tank. And this is the combination that really makes sense. You want your tanks to have spikes because that's how you clear out backliners. If this was a 2 cost or 1 cost, it would be S tier. It'd be an auto pick. But right now it's really good, but not an auto pick if you have high cost cards already, and you don't want a lot of Cycle of Lives because you can't play them all. But having 1 or 2 Cycle of Lives at 1 or 2 cost ends up being really, really good. So, okay, so that's all the cards. Let's then look at it holistically. We have 1 S card, Unleash the Wildwood. We have several A cards, more A cards than we had with Hellhorn. We have the Thorn Hollow, the only unit that is A tier, I believe, in the set. Root Seeds, Wildwood Sap, Preserve Thorns, and Cycle of Life. On the B tier, we have Animus of Speed, Animus of Will, Awoken Hollow, Shattered Shell, Vine Mother, and then for spells we have Restore, Invigorating Solution, Pyre Grow, Engraft, and Focus Growth. Awake and Wildwood Tome. Under the C tier, we have the Edge Prior, Husk Hermit, Wildwood Custodian, Shard Channeler, and then under the spells we have Steel Enhancer, Sting, Vine Grasp, Glimmer, Restoration Detonation, Sharpen, and Snare, Bramble Lash, Restoring Retreat, Awoken's Rail Spike, Channel Song, Adaptive Mutation, and Spreading Spores. And then finally in the D tier, we have Wilting Sapwood and Pyre Shards. This is how I would rank them or review them. In general, what do we say about Awoken? I think Awoken is the best secondary clan you can add. There's so much value in especially Root Seeds, and then a lot of the other spells you can get. Healing is almost always good. It certainly doesn't pair with armor, but I think in a lot of ways it's better than armor. You want all of the stat buffs are really valuable. The spikes are okay. They're a good way to clear off backliners. And the units are all pretty good. There's only a handful that are not very good. Most of the units are pretty good. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units in A or B tier, which is a lot more than a lot of the other clans. So yeah, so those are my thoughts. Feel free to trash me in the comments. Some people felt already happy to do so with the first one. I'm happy to discuss it even further. Tell me how I'm wrong. Tell me how you would do it differently. Yeah, again, if you liked it, please subscribe, like the video, check out my other videos, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.